On this week's episode of Friend Code, we're continuing our stroll down memory lane with the N64 and the Gameboy Color. So how's it going, everyone? Damiani here on a new episode of Friend Code. We talk about all things Nintendo, and I am joined... Whoa, Kyle, what was that head shake?
We've started off with one of my pet peeves.
Whoa. What is that, Kyle?
All things blank.
All things blank.
Today we're going to chew on all things Persona 5.
Well, you know what, Kyle?
Huh.
In the back of my head, every single time I post about Friend Code, and you're like, Damiani, what's Friend Code? Damiani, what's Friend Code? So your trolling has been embedded into my mind, Kyle.
Okay.
So much that I felt the need to qualify what this show is about at the beginning.
We should have had a discussion about the definition of friend code.
The definition of friend code.
Yes.
We will have to work on that. So as you've heard or seen, we are joined today by Kyle Bosman.
Hi, everybody.
And Mr. Daniel Bloodworth.
Hello.
And last time, part 1, we talked about NES, Super Nintendo, the original Game Boy, and we're making our way to the N64 era. Before we get there, there's a little bit of one item of housekeeping, I think.
Okay.
Last episode, we actually did our Nintendo, the April Nintendo Direct. We did discussion about it, and we asked for your feedback regarding whether or not you cared how late it was after the actual Nintendo Direct. And it seemed overwhelmingly the direction was, please do that. Please absolutely cover it, no matter how late or how long it takes you to get to it. So we'll continue to do that. So thank you for providing that feedback. And that's pretty much it for housekeeping. So
cool.
Good stuff. But we always begin most episodes with Dear Nintendo.
Yes.
And we are traveling back to 1998, the November 1998 issue of Nintendo Power, which was covering The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, on the cover here. Then they have this nice spread ad in here with the nice pamphlet.
1998, good grief.
1998.
What a year.
Had this artwork in here.
What is that?
Let's turn around so we can see it. Oops. I have another copy of this. It's the...
Yeah, flip that side to them too.
Yeah.
Because you covered the art before.
Yeah.
Something tears apart. It's like, I got another copy. It's okay.
It's okay. It's falling apart, but it's okay. We
There's
got
Link, and there's like a Deku Baba.
Yeah. And then one more.
Thank you, Blood. I forgot what those are called. Is it Deku Baba?
Yep. And they had some pose on there, or a po. Ooh, good thing it didn't fully... Oh, man, it's starting to break at the seam, I guess. Or the binding.
Two great ads here.
Kyle likes both ads. They're pretty good. The N64 gold cartridge, the Ye Snooze, Ye Lose, the pre-order for the original gold cartridge for the Nintendo 64 version of Ocarina of Time. And then last but not least...
You know what? Can we talk about the Whilst Thou Suck ad campaign for a second?
Oh, yeah, sure. You're talking about the video.
Yeah.
Which they also remade for Ocarina of Time 3D. But they reworded it a bit.
Right. And that's what they're doing right here with the, what did it say?
So it says, Ye Snooze, Ye Lose.
Ye Snooze, Ye Lose.
Don't blow thy only chance for a limited edition gold cartridge.
Yeah.
And then Zelda, have ye what it takes.
So they're like an attempt at edgy using medieval language, you know? I don't think it was a bad idea.
Oh.
I think it's way off tone for what Zelda is,
Right.
but to get people in 98, to get teens in 98, I think it was a good call, actually.
Yeah, I think the only thing because it was a product of the time, was the one line in the trailer. Obviously, it was like, you know, making fun of like, will you like play like a girl or something?
Yeah,
it was something
like cry like a girl. What was it?
I forget what it was, but basically said like, hey, you know,
a little too edgy.
Yeah, they removed that from when they remade it in 2011. They took that out. Very appropriate then. And then here's the table of contents, which is also Ocarina of Time art themed. But it's more like a original art style with some official art weaved in.
That's official art?
Yeah, like the link.
Yeah.
The link right there. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, like I love the table of contents. Like that's so cool. Like the little like horse. But here we go. The player's poll section, which is the subject of every Dear Nintendo segment. Let's start with I like this one, Kyle.
Okay,
Here's the first one. In Bloodworth, you might find this amusing. The title is called Talk is Cheap. In Banjo-Kazooie, what is Kazooie saying when she jumps? To me, it sounds like Bree, as in red-crested breagle, the type of bird she is. Other times, it sounds like she's simply saying free, like she is happy to be free from the backpack. From Luke via the internet.
Yeah.
And Nintendo Power staff reply, you got it right the first time, Luke. Unlike the lyrics to the Yoshi's Story song, we know what Kazooie is saying,
No, you
and
don't.
it's Bree.
No, you don't.
So they don't know. They don't know if Yoshi's are saying Nintendo, the end of, or whatever weird jargon that people like assume is.
She's not saying Bree.
So Kyle disagrees.
Oh.
So if anyone out there from Nintendo Power would like to chime in,
Prove it.
go ahead and hit us
Prove
up in the
it.
comments and prove it.
Prove it
I
that
mean,
prove it
prove
that
it-
she
prove it
makes
to us.
just random noises for every other move
Like-
or discussion except for
Yeah.
that one where she's saying Bree as in
Contact
Right.
contact me personally on
Yeah.
Twitter. Hit me up.
Hand him the
I'll
prove it
I'll
ticket.
turn it into a little mini episode video for Kyle. And
Is Uncle Tusk out there? Can he tell us?
So I do agree she makes a noise that sounds like Bree.
I always thought it was Bree when I played it.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
it was that.
But it's like she's not saying Bree as in Breagle.
Okay, so you're disagreeing about why.
Yeah.
Okay, you want that proven. Okay, I see. This is an interesting one.
'Kay.
I like this one. We'll do 3 from each one. So this is the second one. This is called Fade Into You. Why do the pictures I print from my Game Boy printer fade?
Oh.
From Max,
Oh,
via the
Max.
internet.
Wow.
Instead of using ink, the Game Boy printer heat transfers images onto its special thermal paper, which, if you touch too much, can cause your pictures to fade. To save yourself the worries, avoid excessive handling of the heat-sensitive paper. You'll also be able to rest easier knowing that you'll never have to buy refill cartridges for your inkless printer. Interesting.
I wonder
That's a
how
good
many
point.
people put their their printouts into the freezer after this letter.
Touch too much.
I lived in Florida. Like heat would have probably made it fade without me
Yeah.
touching it.
It is a bummer, Damiani, that we skipped Game Boy Color. We were at the point where we're past the Game Boy Color. I love that thing. Sorry, camera. Game Boy camera
I
is
was gonna say.
Oh yeah.
that thing. I love. It's like my first video camera that I ever
Wow,
had.
really?
Well, kind of, because you could like make movies in it using stop
Oh
motion.
yeah, I remember that. The simple things. Yeah.
Yeah, I really
Well,
love Game Boy camera.
Even if you weren't making movies, like it looked like a video camera when just looking at it, moving
when
it
you're
around.
like, yeah.
It
It's
looks
a
like a
digital
webcam.
camera. Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty cool for its time.
Really, really cool. It's the first I ever saw Pokemon too.
So I lied. Actually, there's one I want to read from this other page, but another one just caught my eye.
Oh, okay.
I like this one.
All right.
Putting the video in video games. My friends say that other systems are better than the N64
Oh, no.
because they can display cool video cutscenes.
Oh, don't bring that in here.
I don't have any doubt the N64 is the best system out there. But I wonder why Nintendo does not put full motion videos in games. Is it because of the space? Says William via the internet, but this might as well have been Damiani via like fan mail back
Yeah.
in the like late 90s. 'Cause this is something I would have brought up.
Sure.
Full motion video scenes are no stranger to N64 games.
Nice.
Just look at the intro and 2 finales in Banjo-Kazooie. Wait, what?
No, incorrect.
Or the multiple endings in Mortal Kombat 4. Lack of memory is hardly an issue, considering The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time features around an hour's worth of full motion video scenes while never skimping on the detailed graphics
How dare
or its
you.
abundance of sprawling areas. I don't think they know what I think they have a different definition of full motion
Yeah,
video.
absolutely do.
Like,
wow.
I guess they probably are not
there
trolling,
are
but
examples,
they're-
but those are not those examples.
I think they are like dancing around it by saying you didn't say CG.
Right.
Yeah, full motion can apply to any kind of graphics that are in motion and
That's
rendered.
the question. Do you think the person answering knew better, or the person answering didn't want to like take the L?
I think it was a bit of both. I
Yeah.
think there was a group discussion. Nintendo's like, yeah, let's let's be smart. Let's try and retrain our fans to believe that FMVs can mean more than those pretty cutscenes in Final Fantasy VII.
Because Damiani, the next day they go to school with that answer right there and point their finger at it and it's like, look, FMV right here.
So, hey, Mr. PlayStation owners, got your Final Fantasy VII, and those cool CG cutscenes? Well, guess what? Ocarina of Time's got an hour's worth of FMVs.
It says so right
here.
here.
It says so right. Nintendo said so.
Yeah.
It's also why, listen and be careful about taking anything at face value from Nintendo Power sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Planting the seeds.
Anyway, the last one, I like this one too. Ocarina of Rhyme. People are waiting, holding vigils at the store, waiting for the arrival of Zelda 64. They are shivering from head to toe in anticipation of the genius of Shigeru Miyamoto. For the land of Hyrule is a magical place. Players move around in perfect 3D space. They can meet local villagers and see their smiles, or go to a field and see for miles. Now the release date has been set. I hope this release date can be met. For us, there is a lesson to be learned, that true life begins on November 23rd. Seahawks 90 via the internet.
Too true. Too true.
The Nintendo replies. Nintendo Power staff reply. True life also begins on page 16. In this issue, we start our Ocarina of Time strategy reviews. But some of you adventurers may want to skip this article if you'd rather have the game's secrets and mysteries left untold. Like how it's called strategy reviews.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time strategy reviews.
Yeah. It's not really a review, but it's just, yeah.
Maybe they're
weird
reviewing the
terminology.
strategies there. But that's going to do it for this this segment of Dear Nintendo. And very relevant because, as I said earlier, it's time to talk about the Nintendo 64. And I'm kind of curious to know.
Well, we got another little thing sitting there real quick.
Oh, yeah.
That's
So
not a Game Boy Color.
Yes, we have a good lineup today. We have the N64, which was known as the Fun Machine, as indicated on the box itself.
The box says it.
Box says it. I don't think Kyle believed it.
Yeah.
Kyle never knew about this.
The Fun Machine.
He didn't know it was tagged as the Fun Machine.
And that, to me, that's the PlayStation. You know what I mean? They looked at a thesaurus. They're like station machine, fun, play. I don't know, Damiani. I don't know about that.
They were going after it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The
I
Fun
don't know.
Machine?
I don't know that any made the connection at all.
Okay.
I never made that as a kid.
All right.
A little over my head. We also got...
I also think there is a sense that, like, it's the antithesis because, like, you know, the PlayStation being, like, more grown up or whatever.
Cool.
You know, like, more about movies and coolness.
It's the MTV
like,
crowd.
You know, because, like, they even talked about, like, the shape. Like, you know, you can have, you know, your dad's compact car. You can have this sleek sports car, you know. Like, it was hilarious, some of the stuff they had in Nintendo Power.
Oh, wait. So they love the big, dopey shape of the N64? Are we skipping ahead to
the streamlined curves or whatever, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's a nice design. Yeah, it's like a German auto manufacturer
No, it isn't.
went after it. Yeah. Smooth. It's like a Porsche.
Do you really want to talk about the shape of this
It's like
thing?
a Porsche. We might have to get into that.
Okay. Because you know I have a lot of thoughts about the controller, but the console itself, I think, is...
What's wrong with it, Kyle?
I think it's dopey.
I think it's dopey.
I think the design itself is
you're
dopey.
going to need to qualify that statement.
So I do. I think that the curves and the hilliness of it make it look silly.
The hilliness.
I think it makes it look like something you would see in Toonland.
In
In
Toonland.
Disneyland, yeah.
Okay.
What, are you popping this thing
He's
open
popping
right
it
now?
open.
We
right
gotta
now.
open up. We gotta like,
Oh,
just have
boy.
this box art. Come on. It's just right here.
Oh, yeah, and that, like, prominent vent right there, too.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that, Kyle. Shiny. That smooth.
You're showing me and not the audience. There we
Showing
go.
you
Okay,
first
the
to
audience can
remind
see
you
now.
all. Or remind Kyle Bosman. Look at
It's
that.
smaller than I remembered. When I first like saw it, it seemed huge.
It's the back.
It seemed
It's
massive.
like the under thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively the same size as a
Look
PlayStation.
at this thing. Kyle, hold it.
Yeah.
Look at that. There's no other
Ooh,
system
it's
that's
heavy.
designed like that.
It's heavy, baby.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's worth mentioning. I mean, wait, Damian, are we going out of order, man? Because I feel like we've skipped ahead. Like, it's here, it's in our hands. But, like,
So now that you
four
have
controller ports, I think, is a huge part of what the N64 is.
So we did skip ahead a little bit. While you're holding in your hands, Kyle, tell us about the first time you experienced Nintendo 64. And did you own a Nintendo 64 when it was that generation?
Never owned one, only played it at a friend's place.
Okay.
So a friend was really my only exposure to the Nintendo 64 personally. My first experience, Damiani, with Nintendo 64 was actually cruising USA at the arcade at the bowling alley.
All right.
When it was loading, it had a loading screen that said Ultra 64. And that I played a lot of Cruising USA.
Cruising.
Yeah, did Cruising USA ever come to N64?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Oh yeah. I
Same
played a
in
ton of
Cruising
it on
World as well.
N64. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think I played much of it in the arcade.
Oh, it's such a checkpoint. Anyway, so Ultra 64, I think, had that kind of buzz, like minimal buzz, but like that kind of thing where like the spinning steel logo of Ultra 64 made you excited, and it was called Ultra 64 for a long time, right?
Yep.
Probably a good choice not to call it the Ultra 64 in the end. I don't know when it switched to Nintendo. Probably just
Because they ran into legal, or not, they couldn't
Really?
trademark it somewhere in Europe, I believe. Something already had
Ultra
that name,
64.
and they couldn't use it, so they ended up having to go with Nintendo 64. I believe that's the official reason why they had to ultimately switch the name.
think of that universe where it's called the Ultra 64.
I mean, it was following like you had NES, Super NES,
yeah.
Ultra Nintendo, so it's going with those.
Oh, I get it. Ultra is better than Super.
Yes,
Got it.
better adjective.
The first.
I actually cut out because it was actually just about the right size. I actually cut out the Ultra 64 logo from the photo in Nintendo Power.
Oh, nice.
And taped it over the N64.
Wait, really? Because you thought that word was so much cooler?
Yeah.
That's what
thought
you
the
and
old
you
logo was
Yeah,
cooler.
you take it to your PlayStation
Right
friends.
here, this spot right here,
Yep.
bud?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Then you could take that PlayStation friends. You got an Ultra 64.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's like the Power Glove movement.
The
So bad.
first time I ever saw one in person.
Yeah.
Let me go back one more. The first one I ever saw one on TV
Oh, wow.
was
so
a
TV.
commercial for a local game store called HORC, which I talked about the last Nintendo Memories. It's where we got Game Boy games with swear words in them. But HORC had this commercial that was like, HORC, we have Japanese Nintendo 64 and American Nintendo 64. Come on in, supplies are limited. HORC. And it would be full of video game stuff. They would have cutscenes from Jumping Flash 2 and Tekken, just like the CG cutscenes, just make you
Throwing
really
random
pumped.
stuff.
I just remember the spinning hand of Yoshimitsu on their commercials. I was like, "Whoa, video games! HORC looks so cool."
Kyle, maybe the Nintendo Power staff went there and they saw those FMVs, and then that's why they thought.
We do those.
Yeah, we do those. We
Yeah,
got
that's-
hours worth of
that's on our HORC
Ocarina
commercial.
time.
The first time I ever saw one in person, it was Christmas '96. They were in limited supplies, I think. I think it was like a kind of rare thing that anyone would have it.
It was a hot item.
It was leading up to Christmas. My uncle was over at my grandmother's place, and he had one. And he had Mario 64 running.
Nice.
And unfortunately, like just as we arrived, it was like, okay, let me put my video games down. It's time to be with my family. And I was like, can I play this? And the answer was no. No.
That must have been so disheartening.
Yeah. But Damiani, like I think now I'm probably as old as my uncle was then. I'm probably a little younger. Let's say I just got a Switch. Let's just say I got a Nintendo 64 with Mario 64, and my little nephew wants to play it. I would say no. No, you little nephew.
Hand Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to them and be
no.
look at the joy and pleasure
Sorry,
you'll
bud.
get from this.
This is Mario 64.
Just make them play with the Joy-Cons.
I totally get it. I totally get why he wouldn't let me play it. But we just watched it. We watched Mario sleeping and like dreaming about spaghetti.
That's the funny
Spaghetti.
thing. He left it running.
He left it running on the TV.
Like it auto saves. He
Yeah.
could have just flipped it off. He's just gonna tempt you. with
tease me with
Mario.
that. Yeah. And we were all kind of like enamored by that. We were kind of amazed that Mario was so real that he would fall asleep and have dreams.
Yeah.
Those are my first N64 memories, Damiani. Well, you want to hold this thing?
Sure.
All right, Bloodworth. What about
Are we
you?
moving on? Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, like you, like I had like all the Nintendo Power videos and stuff coming in. I can't. The weird thing is I can't remember the original way that I was going to have paid for this. Like, I think I might have been saving up some money. I'm not sure exactly what the thing was, but I remember there was a pre-order, like at Toys R Us.
Okay.
Oh, I'd actually Toys R Us had the whole line of playable demos. So
Yep.
like, again, Toys R Us was right next to where my mom worked. So when I would have to sit and wait for her to finish work, then I would just pop over to Toys R Us. I'd play some Mario 64. And she would come over and grab me
Amazing.
when
How long did they have that before release? The Mario 64 demo.
I can't remember, but it was definitely like weeks
Yeah.
ahead.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It was quite a ways in advance. But anyways, so when launch day came, we went over to Toys R Us with the pre-order, and they were like, we didn't get enough in, and so yours will probably be coming in like a couple of weeks in like October. And it was like, what? No, I've been waiting all this time. and so my brother basically stepped in, and we went across the street to Walmart, and Walmart had them right there, and my brother just bought it for me right there.
Nice,
So
brother.
I got the N64 and Super Mario 64, and I remember like driving home and like pulling the Mario 64 cartridge out, and like it's a different game, but it's like just looking like how big it was and how heavy it was, because compared to the Super Nintendo cartridges, they definitely felt heavier. And that one may not be as heavy as Mario 64 actually.
Sure.
Yeah, because their weight's depended on the...
Yeah, just how much is in there. And then Mario 64 was just it for a while, because there was just like, it was just crazy just to move around the courtyard and to jump into the mode and to like slide on your belly or do the kicks or just all of the different things that you could do
Yeah.
in that game that you could never do in another Mario game or in anything really. It's like the closest thing in our minds to that was Star Fox, which was all constantly moving forward. So yeah, and then those first few months, like I was just always at the rental store. Like every new N64 game that came into the rental store, I was like, yep, renting that, and I was just like played every N64 I could. Didn't matter what it was. Like like I played through all the Wave Race. I played through like Mortal Kombat trilogy. I played through like Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey.
Nice.
It was just, if it's an N64 game, I wanted to play it.
Nice. That's I experienced a lot of my games that way too through rentals as well. But my story with the Nintendo 64 was kind of the same way. Similar fashion to how I got my first NES was basically my parents told me you need to get good grades essentially, and I just remember that semester stuck out so much because I got put into a higher, not advanced placement because I was too young. It wasn't that, but like
It's for smart kids.
it was called Humanities was the name of the class.
Okay.
Which was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But it was a harder class. It was a more abstract learning class, and I was just freaking out because I was like, this class is too hard. Like, there's no way I'm getting like an A in this class. Like, I had to get a 90 or above. So came my report card time. The last test I got, I knew the score I needed to get on it to get an A in that class. Got that score. I was like, boom. Went to go get my report card immediately. I was like, showing my parents, like, let's go do it now. And they're like, all right, well, your grandmother has like pre-ordered one for you. I didn't say pre-order, but like your grandmother's getting you one. When it comes in, she'll deliver it. Same situation as you, Blood. Basically, launch came. She didn't get one at launch. She had to wait a few weeks. I remember getting it sometime in October, basically. It's probably mid to late October because I remember I was finishing Super Mario 64 around the week of Halloween, essentially.
Whoa.
Or seeing Bowser, the final Bowser fight around then. And yeah, that's but before that, funny thing, Blood mentioned the videos, like getting videos from Nintendo Power and stuff. I would watch the video they sent for the Nintendo 64, where they the premise was they flew 3 kids in from around the US to Nintendo headquarters to check out the new Nintendo 64. And they made it like the coolest kids I've ever they were like, these kids are the coolest kids in existence right now.
Who do you have to be to get this tape mailed to you?
So I don't think it was if you were a subscriber to Nintendo Power,
Yeah.
you sometimes got them.
Uh-huh.
Other times you got them through retail stores if you were like on some mailing list or whatever, like an old traditional mailing list, not
Weird.
like email. they would send it to you. But apparently, you could just request one. They were free. They were not for sale. They were promotional videos.
Yeah.
You just request one if you knew how to request them.
Cool.
So, got one of those. I got a few others, but that one I would watch every single day. Like I'd before I go to bed, pop it in, watch it, and be like, see the Mario 64 footage, be like, that's gonna be me.
How long is this video?
Oh, like 15.
Yeah, 15 to 20.
Oh, so it's super
minutes.
short?
Oh yeah, it's super
They don't show that
short.
many games on it or anything?
No, it's like the Star Fox 64.
A lot of them, were focused on one game.
Yeah, there was a Star
There's
Fox
Donkey
64.
Kong Country.
Diddy
was
Kong
before
Racing
that.
had one.
Yeah. Banjo-Kazooie had one.
Yep.
There
Definitely had
was
one.
definitely-
Majora's Mask had one.
Nice.
There was definitely one that was like a mix-up though, because I remember like Shadows of the Empire being on there.
So it's probably this one though, like the
Yeah.
launch one.
Yeah,
Probably had Shadows of the
they
Empire on
had.
it.
There was 2 other games. I think it was Pilot Wings, Super Mario 64, and I think it was Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah.
Were on that, and they got to play them. It's like, you guys are so awesome. You're my
Oh, yeah.
heroes.
Yeah.
But before that, I almost gave up hope on the Nintendo 64. that poem we read about the release date, and stuff like that, Ocarina of Time's release date slip, N64 experienced the same thing. There was a point where I was so bummed out that it wasn't coming out as soon as PlayStation, and some of my friends were getting PlayStations and being like, "Look how cool this is." I was like, I started a PlayStation fund. Basically, like my money I earned would go into some kind of tip jar essentially that said PlayStation fund on it.
This is 96?
It was 95.
Oh, okay. 95.
Like
what
95
were you
or
looking
96.
forward
Sure.
to in '95 though? Because
So-
'95, I was definitely in the mode of like, don't even worry about Sony, like, because of all the other crap that was coming out. It's like it was Nintendo and Sega. Just stick with those. You don't need Sony's junk.
I played when it came out. I started after it came out because I played it. A neighbor had it. I went over to play it at his house. He had Kingsfield, which it just made me think of a 3D Zelda.
Because it's like a first-person RPG, right?
Yeah. I was
From
like, oh man,
Software.
I can't wait to play Zelda like this.
Okay.
It's terrible at it, but it's super fun to just run around and get killed and everything like that. And then the Warhawk, the Harrier game.
Sure.
Forget, was it called Warhawk?
It's called
Yeah,
Warhawk.
Warhawk,
Yeah. Played that and I loved that. I was like, oh man, this is pretty cool. It's like
And you had to go home to your Super
I
Nintendo.
went home and I was like, when's N64 coming out? Oh, okay, Nintendo. This might make me change my mind.
So at what point did the PlayStation fund become a Nintendo fund?
As soon as that video arrived.
Really?
When that video arrived and I put it in,
Yeah.
I was like, what? Because I had said the fun machine on it, and it had the date, the release date, had this Mario, it had the Mario from right here or whatever, just looking at me, staring at me like, you want to come back. Watch.
By the way,
watch this.
That pre-rendered Bowser on there that's one of the grossest Bowsers.
Oh, I think it's actually really good, Blood. I like his
do?
proportions. Yeah.
I don't know, like his arms just look like they're sticking out real awkwardly, and he's like extra shiny.
Damiani will add it with full screen graphics in post.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
But yeah, so I flip flop basically
Because of
I was
that
into
tape.
PlayStation, got that tape. It's totally an N64. The Nintendo Power coverage and reinforced it. They kept doing all these previews on Super Mario 64. They showed off Zelda 64. They showed off what was going to be Star Fox 64. I was just like, oh my god, we're done. We're done.
Yeah, the
Earthbound
early-
64. I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, the
We're-
early Zelda footage with the Metal Man or whatever he was fighting.
I was just like, we're done here. I'm coming back, Nintendo. I'm sorry I betrayed you.
You just triggered a new memory in me. I'm at Target.
Ooh.
And up at Target, they have a video where they were very combative, the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation, and which one's better. And so I remember this ad that had Conker in it before it's Conker's Bad Fur Day. It's like
Oh.
cute Conker.
Yeah.
And it's talking about all the advantages of Nintendo 64.
Yeah.
And it's like, on the Nintendo 64, you have no load times. Sorry, CDs. It was
That was
various, aggressive
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that was. I remember.
I
them
think
going
they
back
actually
and forth about
Nintendo
that.
Power compared a space shuttle to a snail as the speed difference with the calculation.
Can you believe that? They didn't have to go in there, but they had kids writing in of the FMV every day. They directly compared it. They had to do it.
I
all
remember
the
some of
time.
that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't want to call it the brainwashing or anything like that, but
Yeah.
they definitely were trying to put the messaging out there of that. Hey, bring up these points
Yeah.
when your PlayStation fans try and tell you your system can't do this.
But we should go back to the fact that at the time, PlayStation was one of a long string of people that didn't have a freaking clue.
Oh yeah.
Right. Even in '96, PlayStation's not a huge success. I don't think.
Right. It
after
wasn't
its first year.
really until like Resident Evil, Final Fantasy VII, I think, that PlayStation started like really gaining a lot of hype.
Right.
It had, because you're referencing that there were predecessors to the Sony PlayStation. There was the Philips CDI, the Magnavox 3DO. I think it was like
The Panasonic 3DO.
Panasonic.
There was like a Magnavox thing, right? I can't remember. But there was the
something.
like really
Yeah.
expensive Neo Geo thing.
Oh yeah. Now there was a
Jaguar.
The Jaguar was
Yeah.
talking about 64-bit tech
Yep.
for a long time,
But that was like Atari. I think the other ones were more electronics manufacturers.
Sure.
Which
Yeah.
Sony was also lumped into that group.
Right.
And people are like, what are you doing?
You make TVs.
Like,
Why are
we
you
have
doing
Sega,
Yeah.
we have Nintendo. There's no room for a third. We
Yeah.
forgot, like, even Apple tried to make a
Yeah.
crack with Pippin early on. People just, like, thought they were crazy. You're not going to do this. We don't really need to get into it at this point, but obviously Sony had a whole lot of motivation for the PlayStation and wanting to make it succeed, and they just like stuck it to Nintendo. And that was, I thought that as much as people love to talk about the console war of the Genesis Master System versus the Super Nintendo, I always felt the PlayStation N64 rivalry was huge. I remember
absolutely it
a
was.
Crash Bandicoot commercial where he'd go outside of like Nintendo's headquarters with a megaphone
Yes.
and would like make fun of the system and stuff.
You're talking
and, like,
edgy? That's the edgiest
they'd do
possible
like
thing.
skeet shooting with the N64.
No,
Yes.
that was Sega Saturn.
The Sega Saturn.
Oh,
did
wow,
that?
okay.
Oh yeah. But the Crash Bandicoot, just going
At
out there.
Nintendo HQ.
Yes.
What a genius ad.
I mean, I was just like, wow, what is Nintendo doing? I
They're just gonna sit and take this?
Yeah, I mean, we'll save this for another episode. Getting into
Sure.
that, there's a lot of good stuff to get into there.
Yeah.
But and we're also gonna get into in other episodes. We'll definitely dedicate coverage to like Nintendo's first party offerings, like Super Mario 64. We've already talked a little bit
You
about.
can do a whole hour on 64.
Ocarina
for
of
sure.
Time, Star Fox 64, Mario Kart 64. We'll get into all those, but I think the point to make here is that Nintendo 64, when it came out, was a success at first, but it experienced a lack of support that had not been seen before because of various reasons. A lot of people like to say because it was cartridge based, and you saw a bunch of companies not making games for them anymore. So we had Super Mario 64 at launch, and then you had like Shadows of the Empire as a big like winter title. Then they had Mario Kart 64 came out spring of '97. Then you had Star Fox in summer. Then Diddy Kong Racing and GoldenEye at the end of the year. Diddy Kong Racing was like a stealth drop. Like came out of like
Yeah,
nowhere.
I remember
That's
that.
funny.
It came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and those are like the four big games I can name. They're huge games, but they were all like driven by Nintendo first party or second party studios.
But there were other things too. Like we already talked about like the Star Wars and and then we had Turok. Turok was pretty
Yeah,
big.
Turok was '97.
Pilot Wings.
Well,
Pilot
Pilot
Wings
Wings
was first
was
party.
a launch first party, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, so you're talking third party, big third party.
Yeah,
were trying to find,
there
like,
was
the big
Doom
third party.
64, which was like really interesting because it was like completely fresh from the ground up game that was only on the N64.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
It's not Doom?
It's a very different game.
Wow,
It's
I didn't
like
know that
3D
one.
environments, but with sprite scaling.
Huh.
Which I guess that's the original Doom anyways. But I
Right.
mean, it was just like, it looked different. It was a very different game. The level designs were different.
Okay.
And what else? And then like later in the life cycle, like you had the Top Gear racing games.
Oh yeah.
You had
Top
Beetle
Gear
Adventure
Rally,
Racing.
Beetle
You
Rally.
had like the San Francisco Rush. So like there's definitely a slower pace, and compared to the Super Nintendo, it's not nearly as many games. But the N64 actually did have a fair amount of third party through its life. Like even had the Rogue Squadron and
Yeah.
the Indiana Jones game and Pod Racer later on too.
Oh yeah, Pod Racer. Factor 5 stuff was really good. Starting on N64 with Rogue Squadron, and then the Episode 1 Battle for Naboo, and then carried over obviously into GameCube stuff. I do not question that there was like good third party releases on the Nintendo 64. And there were
here's one.
yeah.
Space Station
It's
Silicon Valley.
Who made that, Blood?
Guys that made GTA. This is like a comedic, cartoony GTA essentially, where you are, it's kind of got that dark humor going on, where there's like this guy who's supposed to save the world from this space station that's come back from the past, and then he like crash lands and his robot, his robot falls apart. And so you're putting his robot buddy back together, but the robot's chip can walk around. So you basically like defeat all of these robot animals, and then the chip jumps inside them and control them. So there's like a rocket fox and like a mouse so it's like you basically like hijacking, just like you do in GTA, hijacking cars, but you're hijacking these like robot animals. And platforming stages with this like really kind of dark sense of humor.
I thought of a few like third-party games.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Glover.
Oh,
yeah,
Glover to me was like this bunch of like we can do other games like Mario 64 on this console. Here's Glover. Glover never looked appealing to me.
Mm-hmm. No.
What's the one with the bee?
Buck Bumble.
Buck Bumble. Never.
Yeah, I didn't ever got to play it,
What's
but it was
the
sort of
Tonic
on
one?
the edge.
What's up?
What's the Tonic one?
Oh, I know what you're thinking. It was a purple guy. Ubisoft made it, right?
Yeah. He looks like Rayman.
Yeah.
But it's about Tonic. It's like Tonic Trouble or something.
Sure.
Never.
I mean,
But then Mischief Makers.
there's Mischief Makers.
Well, yeah, but that's a 2D cool 2D game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Treasure.
And so then I was thinking of like, you think of the Super Nintendo and the
Quest 64.
The point Damiani's trying to make, Quest 64, good grief, of like, this was a go-to place. I was thinking of Capcom and Konami. Konami made Castlevania 64 for the 64.
And a couple sequels.
Meanwhile, killing it on the PS1. And like Capcom's best stuff is on the PS1.
So, yeah.
And like Resident Evil 2 made it to the N64, but it wasn't their focus.
Okay, so you're a Mega Man Legends fan.
Yeah.
There's a sort of pseudo port, or what is that Mega Man?
It's called Mega Man 64, and it's just Mega Man Legends.
It is just Mega Man Legends.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's like no difference.
But they kept in like voice acting and stuff is all in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yes.
Oh, and Resident Evil 2
Resident Evil
was
2.
like the biggest cartridge.
Mm-hmm.
They did that, and they even made a StarCraft 64.
Oh yeah.
They tried.
Oh, wow,
They made what was the other one? Not other than Doom. The Quake was also, there was a Quake on N64.
But you see like how interesting that is, like that perspective when you compare that lineup to like the Wii U, where there's like just literally not third parties.
Sure.
There obviously was like good third party support, but the point Kyle was making, and I get to, is certain blockbusters just decided to abandon, like big publishers decided to not publish their AAA games on Nintendo 64 that generation. You mentioned Capcom. I think one of the biggest ones at the time was Square Enix basically pulling support.
Oh, you're right. Absolutely.
The
Yeah.
video.
Well, that got personal. Like that was executives not talking to each other anymore. Like that was.
It was basically it basically stemmed from like the royalty fees and the companies had to pay, third party companies had to pay Nintendo
For
because they were like Nintendo was just like draconian to the max, like tyrannical almost, in imposing their will with that.
Okay.
That was old Yamauchi right there. Or sorry,
Yeah.
is it Yamauchi or Yamaguchi?
Yamauchi.
Thank you. I was just like had a brain fart for a second. I was like, whatever. But yeah, that guy ruled with an iron fist when it came to third parties. Where started to get into like PlayStation stuff. Like Sony was basically like, we will do whatever it takes to get your games on us on PlayStation. And yeah, Square Enix was just burnt out by that, or Square Soft at the time.
Yep.
And yeah, because I remember seeing the 3D demo video for, it was the Final Fantasy 6 characters in an N64 demo, and the next thing you know, there's this thing called Final Fantasy 7 coming out. Like, wait, 1, it's 7, and 2, it's like, why is that not coming to Nintendo 64? I thought you had, like, where's that game you advertised?
Right.
Like,
And
nope.
every other Final Fantasy game
And then,
has been on Nintendo.
now we know that it was never an N64 game. It was just
Yep.
running on a Silicon Graphics workstation.
Yep. and that
Wait,
one's-
what?
It was not an N64 game. It was not planned to be an N64
people
game.
who designed the N64.
But Nintendo Power ran it as if it
GPU,
was.
Yeah. Because it was
Whoa,
originally
revelations.
it was called Project Reality originally.
So it's just some people who aren't involved with Square at all, just showing that they could potentially.
No. It was Square.
Okay.
But it
But they
wasn't
showed
run
it
on
at
N64
SIGGRAPH
hardware.
on a
Yeah.
workstation. It was not. a actual game in production, and it was not an N64 game.
Got it.
Yep. And
it had like weird motion controls for like spells and stuff. Yeah,
yeah, it was.
or maybe not motion controls, but just strength
Like
inputs.
analog stick input or something.
You mentioned Capcom.
Mouse, maybe, I don't remember.
You know, in Konami, yes, we got Castlevania 64, two Castlevanias on Nintendo 64, but then PlayStation got Symphony of the Night.
Right.
It's like, where's this? Why Nintendo 64 get it? That's cool. Oh, look, Capcom. What happened to Mega Man? Oh, yeah, we got Mega Man 64 after Legends already came out, but Mega Man franchise decided, not continue on the Nintendo 64.
Which is crazy.
Street Fighter games? Oh, yeah, sorry, Nintendo 64. I mean, some Mortal Kombat games obviously came out, but it's like, here's, Sub-Zero mythologies and
Right.
what was the other one?
Yeah.
It was Mortal Kombat 4, right?
Yeah, Midway, because I think with the Cruisin partnership, I think that Midway was still pretty heavily backing N64.
NFL Blitz, baby, on the
Yeah.
N64.
Blitz.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, there
Heck
was
yeah.
actually quite a few football games.
That was also on PlayStation.
Back when there were multiple football franchises.
Yeah.
You mentioned Resident Evil. 1, 2, 3, Code Veronica, all on PlayStation. We only got 2 on Nintendo 64. Then eventually they came over, but late. It signaled a changing of the guard with the Nintendo 64.
Right. Because
And-
Nintendo was the home of those franchises.
Yeah. So I don't think it's accurate to say Nintendo 64 suffered because of lack of third-party support, as we obviously recounted plenty of really good, third-party games and big third-party publishers supporting Nintendo 64. So those few key titles that just skipped the Nintendo 64, and I think it was enough to show people that, what's going on here? Like, why aren't they on there? But to help, one thing that Nintendo had up its sleeve, I think, that we haven't talked about enough yet, is Rare.
Yeah.
Rare Games, they produced some of the best games on the Nintendo 64. Banjo-Kazooie,
Yes.
GoldenEye, Perfect Dark,
Yep.
Diddy Kong Racing.
Cool.
What else am I forgetting?
Well, Killer Instinct Gold was there
Killer
pretty
Instinct was
early.
their old. Jet Force Gemini.
Jet Force Gemini, yep.
And
Donkey Kong 64.
Donkey
The other
Kong
ones you're forgetting
64.
aren't the best on the
Yeah,
console.
yeah.
You said
Yeah,
the three
yeah.
and three maybe
But
four
I mean,
that are.
they made Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie. Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye,
Yeah.
and
Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's Conquer as well, which
Conquer. I thought Diddy Kong Racing
Very
in
late.
there. People love that. Some
You're right,
people
people
love
love
that
it.
way
Yeah,
more than
it's
Mario Kart 64.
They're crazy, but
They
that's
made
okay.
pretty stellar lineup of games there. In fact, Kyle,
Uh-oh.
what do we got here?
what?
More Damiani
We
history,
got
blood.
some
Oh
cool
my
things
gosh,
here.
I remember this webpage.
So first of all, got some old Nintendo.com. This is from the late 90s, like around 1997, 98. I went there to print off information and cheat codes.
And then
for-
you kept
for
it in a
Perfect Dark.
folder, pristine
Yeah,
condition?
I had to print them off. So it's like a summary.
I don't know if I still have any of these, but I definitely
This
had
one was
these.
still coming out, by
I
the
did
way.
this.
Had like preview information, like a preview on it. All contents copyright 97, 98. So this is 1998. It's like it has like the synopsis for Perfect Dark. Like that was like the links you can click.
It's
At
so
the
weird
end,
at
it had,
this time
like-
because like everything's moving so fast.
Yeah.
I do feel like by the time Perfect Dark came out, it almost looked a little old already. I think it came out in '99 or was
Perfect
it
Dark
2000?
had weird delays, partly because of the camera thing.
Yeah.
The camera thing. Oh, where you could put your face in the
Yeah,
game.
it's originally going to use Game Boy camera.
And then Nintendo Power sent this. It's a little dusty. For GoldenEye. This came with Nintendo Power. Has this nice little like letter on her Majesty's Secret Service.
Yeah, imagine a confidential manila envelope, everybody, if you're listening. That's got Damiani keeps it in pristine condition. Look at this.
Dear 00 Agent,
Oh.
you are hereby requested to participate in the current operation to prevent the GoldenEye satellite system from being used by the Giannis Syndicate. Already, the Giannis Syndicate has demonstrated GoldenEye's deadly electromagnetic pulse, EMP, capabilities by
Metal Gear
destroying
right there.
the Cervanaya satellite station. We have arranged for you to take part in this critical operation via the Nintendo 64 video game system. Begin immediately by contacting your local retailer and reserving your GoldenEye 007 game pack. Start your assignment August 28th, when you can pick up the game with a money-saving coupon below. Please review this entire dossier for information regarding the current assignment, enemy operatives, and the weapons and devices developed for you by the Q branch.
So they call them game packs for pretty much the entire
Game
generation.
packs was like their word for cartridge,
Right.
pretty much.
It could have just said reserve GoldenEye, but it said reserve the GoldenEye game pack.
Then prepare yourself for the most engaging 3D dimensional mission-based game you've ever experienced. Truly yours, M. P.S. If you haven't yet secured your Rumble Pack, do so at this time. You don't want to miss feeling the impact of this highly simulating adventure. That's I mean, there's obviously a lot of GoldenEye stuff in here. It was presented like, top secret files, but they do mention the Rumble Pack.
Yeah.
Which we didn't really talk
It takes
about.
like a AAA battery?
2 batteries, 2 AAAs, yeah.
Yeah,
So
cool.
either you feel confident in explaining what the Rumble Pack
The
was?
thing is, the Rumble Pack is one of those things that very much, I think, was very easily written off by a lot of people as, oh, this is just some dumb gimmick. And yet, no, like, this is now like an industry standard thing.
Yeah.
It's like it really, it changed, how people make controllers. And it's crazy because it's like it came with Star Fox 64. That was the first game that had it, which was also one of the first 4-player games. And we played a ton of Star Fox 64, particularly before GoldenEye and Mario Kart came out. But in a way, it's funny because Star Fox was very much overcompensating to make you really notice. Like when there was an explosion, it was like your whole hand was like.
Better Rumble than we have today, to be honest.
And people, well, definitely not better, but it was more extreme.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
Yeah.
Your hands were really vibrating, your bones were vibrating, as somebody would be screaming on
Yep.
on the screen. But then like GoldenEye, feeling those weapons when you're shooting and everything.
Yeah.
It was just a whole nother dimension. But yeah, GoldenEye, that game carried the N64 for years.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Big time.
In marketing as well.
Yeah, people were just buying N64s to get GoldenEye. Because and I can remember just so many situations where like that's just what people would do all weekend. You just get 4 people together, or more than that. Like people just rotate through.
I feel like that is one of the strongest points of the Nintendo 64. Is, as you can see from the box, as we held up the system earlier, Kyle pointed out it had 4 controller points. Yeah, it was planned to be a big multiplayer experience from the get-go.
A fun machine.
And definitely, Kyle, a fun machine.
Yeah.
And I think some of people's fondest memories and the games they most fondly look back upon are the ones that took advantage of the multiplayer. You've been talking about GoldenEye. You talked about Star Fox 64 also had multiplayer in it.
Mm-hmm. Mario Kart,
Smash Bros,
and
Smash Brothers.
Yeah, Mario Party, dude.
Mario Party and even Perfect Dark.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Those are the games people are playing
those wrestling games?
Long after.
Yeah.
Long after. People still play Smash Brothers 64. Not as much anymore, but like only a few years ago, it was still like a very popular, highly played game because people just loved it so much. Mario Kart 64, you can argue, hasn't aged as well. But I remember playing that like for even after GameCube came out, people were still playing that. People were still playing GoldenEye forever on that until Halo came along and everyone moved on to Halo, basically.
I think that showed a lot of foresight. I think it showed a lot of foresight to have the different colors for controllers. I don't think that was a feature of any console before that, of just everybody has an individual color for their and it just made it more appealing to collect them. And
not only that, but the plug where you plugged it in was the color as well, so you could see visually on the system
player
which
2,
player
player
you are.
3. Yeah, that's so cool. Smash Brothers is kind of a similar thing, I think, to the Rumble Pack, where like when they were showing that game in previews, we were just like, what is this weird, dumb game? This is crazy. Like, they've just, like, Mario in a fighting game? And then, like, Link isn't in Kirby? Like, it was so bizarre. I remember having the article. I had the magazine, EGM, at lunch, and I showed it to my friends at the lunch table. And there was a part of it that said, and Pikachu can shoot electricity out of his butt. And we cracked up. We thought that was so funny. And you're right, Blood. It was the craziest concept.
It's like you
funny
wanted to
where-
play it, but you
Yeah.
didn't want to play it because you thought it would be a good game. It's just like, I just got to play this thing because
Yeah.
it just is weird.
And it was like unlike any other fighter either, because you weren't trying to like beat them by knocking down their life bar to 0. You had to knock them off a stage. Like it fit the whole Smash concept. Like that was just like, oh, it's a clever name, Smash Brothers. Like no, they're
Well, yeah, and then
Smash
the whole
moves.
smashing the analog stick.
Yep, like
Yep.
jamming it. Like really thrusting it. Even the commercial for that game, the
One
some
of
good
the
advertising.
Happy
best
Together with
N64
all the
commercials.
just really good and on point. So
Yeah, that's fair to say. At that time, you would never see Mario punch Pikachu.
oh yeah,
Never.
like Nintendo to do
Yeah,
that,
yes.
to like take all their most prized characters and say put them on screen and show them beating each other up.
Do you remember who else did that at the same era? And maybe it was even the same marketing team. Who knows? It seems very similar. Battle Tank 64. Remember
No.
when they like went after the Snuggles bear? You didn't see this?
Now I remember.
Was this-
Now I
was
remember
this-
this.
Yeah.
It's a
You're
fake-
talking about an ad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. I do remember this. Okay. Yes.
Maximum Edge. You think it's a fabric softener commercial,
Yeah,
but then he
and
like
then they
blows
blow.
up.
Yeah.
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 I remember that.
And the bear's like all burnt and stuff by the end, and the house
those
has been destroyed by
commercials.
the tank.
Good stuff. I want to move on real quick
Oh, okay.
to something else. I have a press release here, everybody.
Oh my goodness.
Going back in time.
The prepared materials today, Damiani.
Remember, Reggie wasn't around yet, so I can't do a Reggie voice.
Okay.
Rome, March 10th, 1998.
Rome. Okay.
1998.
After selling millions and millions of portable Game Boy video game systems with bright colors on the outside, Nintendo of America today, at a third-party publishers conference held in Rome, Italy,
What?
announced the first Game Boys ever to generate full-color games from the inside.
Can we time out for a second?
Okay.
You had this printed out from 1998?
Yeah.
So you
Wow.
didn't just go back and reprint
Look at the
this.
No.
top. The banner says corporate info.
Corporate info. Eh?
So,
Literally from like that around that time.
and you've kept this since then.
Somehow.
That's his genius. Okay,
It wasn't
continue.
planned.
Sorry. Continue.
The new hardware systems will be launched in Japan, North America, and Europe later this year. So it's 98. The new color Game Boy units, they're calling them color Game Boy units, will be similar in size to the existing small Game Boy Pocket units, but will contain new proprietary technology that displays sharp and vivid color graphics of a new type of color reflective screen for play indoors
Yep.
or out of doors.
That was a big thing for Nintendo. Like they wanted it to look good in the sunlight.
The new technology will allow the simultaneous display of 56 bright colors out of a palette of 32,000. The new color Game Boy technology, while providing a dramatically enhanced portable video game experience, also is designed for future expansion opportunities. One is an ability to connect with the Nintendo 64 hardware unit.
Oh my god. They would say that right there? What were they thinking of? The IR maybe?
Color Game Boy.
I don't
Cables.
know.
Maybe cables.
This is the predecessor to the GC GameCube Game Boy Advance
It is,
stuff.
but I don't.
They
I
didn't-
mean,
this
there's
never-
this guy.
There's
a
other
transfer
pack.
pack.
There's
Yeah.
other stuff that happened, but
Okay.
they're getting at that. Color Game Boy will also run more than 1,000 games designed for it internationally since the system's inception in 1989. Those games will show colors in a range of hues from a 10 palette selection determined by the player.
kind of.
Here's a quote.
Right.
Yeah.
For years, our players have asked us for a Game Boy that could play their favorite games in color, but the technology and the high demand of battery life made it impossible, says Howard Lincoln, chairman, Nintendo of America. As the first to surmount the technical obstacles, we are able to introduce a whole new generation of color games to the millions of people who love Game Boy. Just ignoring Game Gear there. Specifics on the technology, the software lineup, and a manufacturer's suggested retail price will be released in the coming months. Nintendo plans to market Color Game Boy worldwide in 1998. Since its release in 1989, Game Boy has dominated the worldwide market for handheld video games, selling more than 60 million units in less than 10 years' time. In the US, Game Boy products claim nearly 90% of all category revenues in 1997.
Wow.
Domination, baby.
Domination.
So Game Boy Color. Oh, that's just more information from the company.
That's so cool you printed that out back then.
Yeah, I was excited.
Yeah.
So Game Boy Color came
Yeah.
out the end of 1998.
Sure.
I'm curious, did either of you pick one up, and why was it a big deal for you other than games being in color? Like what games kind of caught your attention that were specific for the Game Boy Color?
No, I'll say I spent most of the time on Game Boy Color playing Pokemon.
Oh.
And so when I got Pokemon, I'm playing on my big fat Game Boy. I'd never had a Pocket.
Right.
Light never came out in the US. So I never had a Pocket. And so that upgrade was worth it to me. I'm playing Pokemon so much. I love Pokemon. I can have it on this nice thing, and Pokemon is gonna be in color. Heck yes. I don't think Metal Gear Solid Ghost Babel came out for a while. So maybe my first Game Boy Color only game was the Bionic Commando one.
Okay.
And that game is sick. That's a sick game. I really, really like that game. Cool progression. There's sniping missions. Highly recommendable. I didn't play Mario Deluxe.
Yep.
Super
Mario Deluxe.
Yeah, Super Mario Deluxe. I never played it, but that was cool. They added like a world map to Mario.
And the completion
secrets and
it was like the
things.
predecessor to achievements. They had like checkbox, like score things.
Did they?
Yeah, there were little things you can complete in there to
Yeah.
unlock. There's some kind of bonus.
That's when they started doing the red coin things.
Yes.
I
Right?
think
Yep.
so. Yeah.
And they added the it's like collectibles in those.
But yeah, it was like it was genius. It was like whoa, taking the classic game and
I'll
making
tell
you
you,
have to go do extra challenges.
One of the most striking things about the promotion of the Game Boy Color, when I think of the potential of it, the reason why you picked it up on day one, they showed Resident Evil on Game Boy Color.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
They showed like a screenshot at third
Yep.
person of the Resident Evil mansion from Resident Evil 1. I'm not sure that ever came out. A DS eventually had a Resident Evil game, but I don't think Resident Evil Game Boy Color
But they
ever came
did,
out.
yeah, they did a good job with some of the, like the portrait art, like when you think about what the Oracle games,
Yep.
the cutscenes in those like look really impressive.
Oh
at the
yeah,
time,
dude.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like I was gonna give special shout outs to the Link's Awakening DX. Like love playing that.
Yes.
Added the color dungeon.
My first Zelda game, Damiani.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the funny thing
Good
is
one.
I never played DX. So when I did my stream of the
Ooh.
original, people were trying to tell me to do things, and I'm like, "Oh, what are you even talking about right
Just
now?"
take pictures.
Yeah.
Photography stuff.
Yeah, and it was like, I don't.
the
Yeah,
picture
this wasn't a
quest
thing like
was not
in
in
the
there.
original game. So I was entirely checked out on Game Boy Color. I had a Super Game Boy,
Yep.
which at that point was how I played Game Boy games. Like I didn't even bother with the Game Boy itself. I played Game Boy games on my TV, and I was also just about to graduate, or actually, if it was coming out late in '98, like I was out of school. I was getting ready to move, and so it just wasn't even on my periphery really. And so it's just like, I didn't see anything because like a lot of what I saw was, games like Mario or Zelda that were enhanced older games. I didn't like the color palette for Mario. I didn't think it still looked as good as an NES. And a lot of the other stuff like Pokemon is like, well, you can still play this on my Super Game Boy.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
there just wasn't really anything there that jumped out at me. So I completely skipped Game Boy Color until Game Boy Advance came out, and that's when I got the Oracle games.
Yep.
Nice.
I remember, obviously a big selling point of the GBA was its backwards compatibility, but specifically the Oracle games came out so close
Yep.
or right after that there actually was a feature. There was a GBA only room or a building. I think it was, I don't know if it was in both, but it was definitely in Oracle of Ages where you couldn't access it unless you're playing on the GBA.
Really?
Like yep.
So I didn't play those until 3DS. I wonder if I got into that Game Boy Advance room.
I wonder.
Yeah.
I don't know. I forget if they added that on there. I should really know that. But
Yeah,
I
Super
remember that
Game
being a
Boy
big
also
deal.
had a lot of like unique color things that I think eventually ended up transferring over to Game Boy Color as well. And they had like weird borders and stuff that you could put in.
Oh yeah, when we say kind of, when they said you can select the color palettes, it's because you have to know the cheats basically.
Yeah,
the
it was
down
the
Bs and the
different,
over
the
left
different
Bs, yeah.
combos, and you had to like, oh god.
I think the Super Game Boy let you like do that a little bit more.
And like select the
the background
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the mortis.
Like you could
template.
actually like pick that stuff more manually.
That was a nice touch. I like that. I did.
Actually, I
like the
think
Super Boy.
they had like some kind of Super Game Boy guide where like with a
Yes.
bunch of different games, like
Yes,
they
it was a player's
showed the
guide.
colors that like worked best for that game.
There was a player's guide for it. Yes.
Yes.
I remember that. But I do like those press releases did make me laugh because they basically were like trying to make it sound like a bigger, grander thing than, hey, forget about the Sega Game Gear or any other offerings that have come out before us.
We've cracked it.
Because they were so late to the party on
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and they made it like a big, we cracked the code.
But the battery life is the whole story, though.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it totally is, because
fair.
Pumping a light into your system chews batteries, and to make that so that you could just like have it reflective and have color. Yeah.
Yeah, like my brother had a Game Gear, and it took 6 AA batteries, 3 on each side. It was ridiculous. And I was like, "Where's that plug? Where's that charger?" Because we'd run out of batteries so fast on that. And I was like, the struggle was real with battery life back in the day, with having to use like actual batteries and having like, a lithium-ion battery in there that was rechargeable or anything like that.
It's so funny. It's the same thing with that printer. It's the same thing with that printer because they said, well, we can't have a printer that requires ink. We got to figure out something else. And that's why it's that heat-based printing. It's that same kind of thing where the primary concern is battery life. And so they compromise out of that limitation.
Yeah. But I still feel like Game Boy Color, like having some good releases on it, I feel it had like the shortest lifespan of any of the portables.
Yeah.
Because Game Boy had
Except for this portable.
Oh yes.
Is this a portable? The Virtual
Here's
Boy?
the segue.
I actually didn't bring the backing, but yeah, like this was designed to work with batteries.
Oh, cool.
But there's you buy an adapter to be able to plug it into the wall.
So what is that, Bloodworth? What are you
So
holding there?
this is a Virtual Boy. This is the Virtual Boy controller.
Oh.
So this is 95. This is pre-N64. This is pre-analog sticks.
Yeah.
So like the way that they handled depth was to have 2 D-pads. So you had one D-pad that like handled the Z axis and the other one that like went up and down on the Y. And then just like an A and B and then shoulder buttons on the back.
And actually really nice triggers. It's not a bad controller.
Yeah. It's got really grippy bits there too, which maybe or maybe not fit your hands. And then
this headset
system itself.
Yeah.
And then this is the cartridge, this big flat thing.
Show me where the cartridge goes in, Blood.
It shows.
The cartridge goes in the bottom, so this is actually there's one in there right now.
And you say this
But
is
it's not
a
easy to
portable
get in
system.
and out either. Like right there.
Oh,
What do
tennis.
you have in there? Oh, tennis.
Tennis is just in there right now.
Tennis is the one I played at Toys R Us.
What came with almost all of them?
Yeah, they
okay.
came with it. I mean, I think all of them. They didn't do like multiple shipments of this device.
Right.
And then there's some sliders to adjust the focus and size of the screens or whatever. But it's very much like a Game Boy in that it's monochromatic. It's a red light to do all the pixels, and then there's 2 images, and so it's basically how it does the 3D is have 2 images coming at you, and then stereo sound as well. I always played this thing not like this because I could never like get into it comfortably.
Yeah.
Because of my height. So I would lay it face down on the bed, and I would just lay on top of it.
What?
And that
That's so cool.
That's
Yeah.
how I ended up having to play. Either lay on top of it or put it on my face.
Yeah.
So how did you wear it like head mounted though? Where's the strap that goes around your head and
There
everything?
isn't.
No head mount.
You're supposed to play it
Oh.
like this, standing up
Oh,
on the table.
Nintendo didn't think of that, huh?
I'm sure they thought of it.
Also, the
I'm
weird thing
just
is that
being
the
sarcastic.
power comes from the controller. So like the controller is the only thing plugged
This-
into there.
This thing was expensive when it came out originally,
Yeah, was it $250?
and it dropped so fast. I remember getting this. I bought this on my own when I was in college. Well, like many, well after. But they were still. You could still find them in stores. I think I got it for $30.
Oh, in store, a new one.
Like a
Like a Kmart or something?
Yeah, like a Target or a Walmart or something still had some, and I got it for $30, $29.99. It was just like we're just trying to get rid of any that we still have. I don't know what they are now, but I bet they don't cost $30 now if you try and go online
I
and get
kind
one.
of want one.
I'm sure they're expensive now. I got this as well as like all the games. I have like 4 or 5 games.
Nice.
From a kid at summer camp for
Whoa.
$20.
Nice.
Like we played with it like that whole summer, and then like at the end, I'm like, "Can I just buy this off of you?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's just $20, whatever."
Whoa.
That's a good deal, Bloodworth.
The controller feels great.
Yeah.
This is actually a really nice Nintendo controller.
Like, I think that the two weaknesses of this is I was pointing out, like, you couldn't wear this, like, even back in the mid 90s, VR headsets were always, like, in media, were shown off as being strapped around your head. So having to do this awkward, like, lean into it type thing. Yeah. And then for kids, there were all those warnings and the reports.
Oh, you can't stay in that thing for more than 15 minutes.
Yeah, like news reports would come out like, don't let your children play this. This is not for like little kids. It'll mess up their eyesight. There's all these weird.
That'll kill it.
There's all these.
But
reports.
I mean, if you don't have everything adjusted either, it will give you a headache. Like straight up.
It was just like it was the first time I remember Nintendo having a bona fide flop. Like we like to joke about even Wii U. Nothing did as abysmally bad as the Virtual Boy.
And it was pulled like right away. Like you're saying, like just months later, you just didn't hear about it. I'd say another problem it had in terms of not meeting expectations is that the games for the most part weren't actually 3D. Like they had dimension to them visually,
like layered,
but
effects.
It was like layered 2D games. So like Wario Land here is easily the best game on the platform, but it's a side-scrolling Wario Land game in which you like jump back and forth from the foreground to the background, and then you have like things that like fly in your face like big old ball and chains or whatever. But like Mario Tennis is kind of 3D, and then Red Alarm is the flying game that's kind of like Star Fox. But here's the problem. Red Alarm's polygons could not be textured.
Yep.
So it's all wireframed?
So it's all wireframed. So you run into walls that you can see through.
Yeah.
You don't realize that you're running into walls and you're trying to fly this ship.
I was so stoked to try that. And when I played it, I was like, this is not work. It's not working as I expected. Like, I mean, it did, but like I just couldn't judge stuff because of that. I was like, no. This is
and then
not,
again,
not
because like how you twist it and stuff makes how deep it looks change.
Oh gosh,
such a weird thing. Yeah,
such a weird system. But hey,
part of the history.
They came back to 3D down the line.
Yeah. And now we have the 2DS XL.
Yeah. So any other closing thoughts you want to say about any of these three systems? Because we kind of gotta move on to the last segment here. It's running out of time. I don't know if there's.
I think we're good. Yeah.
Yeah. N64 is a great console. I do think that it had a lot of problems that Nintendo kind of forced upon themselves. And it is a weird part of video game history. It's a huge chunk of video game history.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of. We'll get into it when we go to GameCube, but it was a turn. It was a turn. It was a decision that Nintendo made that they've kind of still feel that today of what happened with Nintendo 64.
And I will say it's this weird combination of factors too, because it's very easy for me to see Nintendo's perspective of like consumers aren't going to want to wait for a minute and a half for a game to load. You know, like they needed to push the button and it be on. Like, you're not going to sit around for that kind of thing. And this other thing, you know, like prioritizing the graphics, 3D graphics during gameplay so that like everything feels and looks solid, you know, whereas like PlayStation's textures were kind of like warp around and all of that, which, you know, for me not having a PlayStation, like when I'd go to people's houses and I'd see stuff and I'm like, oh, guys, don't you see that? And they like had no idea what I was even talking about. Like I would try to explain it to them, but no words would like, it didn't bother them. They were just playing Tony Hawk.
PlayStation could not have Ocarina of Time on it. It couldn't have Banjo-Kazooie. Those simply wouldn't run on that console. And so, yeah, it definitely had its advantages. It's hard to say they focused on the wrong stuff in going with cartridges.
But it's that huge difference in like how much storage space the CD provides and the new things that you could do with it and the licensing. You know, like Nintendo basically still wanted to act like they were kings when there was somebody just coming around. Poaching every publisher.
I think that was the big thing,
Yeah. Only thing we really didn't get into much discussion about the controller itself. We'll do a future episode where we judge and maybe rank controllers from best to worst. Something we'll really get into the N64's oddly shaped controller.
Oh yeah, we didn't really talk about the analog stick. I mean that is a huge part of the story. Just being able to tiptoe versus run. just by pushing.
Yeah, and I mean, when a lot of people thought about video games at that time, they thought of that thing. You know, that thing doesn't look cool. That thing looks obtuse. And so when you think of gaming, you think of video games, you think of these obtuse, strange shapes, and you need to learn how to use the controller even to learn how to play the games. And I can see where it would start excluding people, and it would become a thing that's more niche and things like that. Just simply by the way that weird controller looks.
I'll say first time I played Mario 64 anywhere was at a Toys R Us at the demo kiosk. I had the hardest time trying to run straight as Mario. Like, just could not do it in 3D.
Yeah.
And that analog stick. It was just so weird and foreign to me. Eventually it clicked, but like I remember the struggle was real for me. It was like drunk Mario. It's like...
I have the same thing with GoldenEye still, dude. They can't do it.
But we'll get into that at another point. We also didn't really talk about like the expansion pack. Like,
I love
that
the
came out as well.
I actually love it.
Some games required it.
Yeah.
But no, overall, you know, I still love this system, and that's pretty much. I'll wrap it up with that. But next time we will be talking about. We'll be moving on to the GameCube, Game Boy Advance era, and talking about those two interlinked systems, the handheld and console. Nintendo kind of furthering the messaging they were pushing in this press release of the N64 Game Boy Color.
Birth of the Switch, right there.
Birth of the Switch.
Birth of the Switch.
Switch, pal. Hold you to it. So that'll be next time, but we have just enough time for our. So, I believe I said last time in housekeeping that question of the week was becoming Last Call. So this is our segment, Last Call
with Carson Daly.
Kyle's never going to stop doing that. Where we're going to select a question from one of our $5 and above patrons for each episode, and we'll let you know in advance what the subject is. So this episode, we were looking for N64. Actually, we set everything up through GameCube. So we will save some of those questions for next time as well. But I'm still going to ask this one because even though we didn't cover GameCube, I still like this question a lot. So the question, this episode's Last Call is from Swordfish 00830. And it's actually a question directed at Blood. And they'd like to know, was the GameCube the one console that got you into video game journalism? Were you just writing about Nintendo for fun? Like people would write FAQs on GameFAQs for everyone.
Yeah, it's a complicated answer because it was definitely a turning point for me. But I started... The first things I really started writing about video games was like in a junior high school newspaper. And they were like a paragraph or two long. And a lot of it was just sort of rehashing things that I read in Nintendo Power and was not very good. And
that's how we all start, though. That's
yeah. But
we're laughing.
But then in high school, I kind of shocked my mom because I was pretty shy. I wasn't very outgoing in a lot of ways, and I was reading this article in the newspaper, and I saw that it was like written by like another teenager or whatever, and I saw like they had like a teen section of writers for the newspaper, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I want to get involved. And so like I called them up and like and wanted to get more info. And so basically, yeah, like right there, like I was, I had no interest in like the high school newspaper at all because like I'm writing for the actual newspaper. And so I would do articles once a month, and they weren't always video game articles, but there were quite a few. One of the reasons that I never got into the whole girl gaming thing that people went through is because I did it back then. I did it in like 94 or 95. I went around talking to girls and what they thought about video games. And got like one of my friends' best friend into a game store and like had her play Kingsfield and Jumping Flash and Chrono Trigger and like what stuff does she like? What does she not like? So it's kind of hilarious to look back on.
We're out on the savannah trying to see what
she
types
like
of games do they enjoy.
We tried Kingsfield.
A Kingsfield game.
And I think the first thing that was published was Donkey Kong Country. So it was
Nice.
End of 94. So yeah, that dates me. So it's been over 20 years that I've been writing about video games.
Nice.
And then GameCube era, leading up to the GameCube, was really getting more involved with communities online, and there was some websites and some forums that I was interested in, and then eventually they kind of brought me in on Planet GameCube just to like update cheat codes and stuff like that, and I tried writing a Pikmin review, and they liked that, and then I just like very quickly, like I don't know, probably within like 6 or 8 months, ended up like being like on the senior staff and like editing other people's reviews and stuff like that. So and then going to E3 and everything every year.
So the interest started long before the GameCube, but the GameCube is really where you took off.
Yeah.
In video games.
Nice.
Yeah, it was like
Cool.
like writing like every night after work pretty much.
Whoa.
Good stuff. Origin story for Bloodworth there.
Yeah.
It's always good to hear. So thank you again, Swordfish, for that question. And a reminder, next time we will be covering GameCube, Game Boy Advance. So I will make another post. I will give you all a chance to ask more questions just about that. But don't feel bad if your question wasn't used from last time. There's still a chance it could be used for the next time we do this. And again, if somehow a direct or something springs up between now and next recording,
It could happen.
It could happen, baby. You never know. That
Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga
The
plus Bowser's Minions.
Bowser's Minions.
Yes.
Virtual Console Direct could happen. Who knows? Could be some crazy stuff in there. Reggie might say something cool as well. Who knows? But
Could happen.
could happen. We'll definitely, opt to cover that, and then we'll hold the Memories Part 3 for the time after that. But the next part will be the last part of the Nintendo Memories, so we will be moving on to something different after that.
How frequently do we put up episodes of this?
Yeah, so it goes up every other week opposite of Frame Trap. And they go up at Sundays around 5 o'clock Pacific time.
Mm-hmm.
And then for patrons who are $1 or higher, and it'll go up on Tuesdays, noon for everyone else. And sorry, before I was going to say that, I was like, yeah, we're getting close to like E3 time. So, oh man, E3 episode of Friend Code. Oh, mega episode possibly.
Ultra
episode. Kyle Bosman.
Yeah.
Since you always ask like, why don't I do this?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're an expert in this field. Would you tell us a little bit about Easy Allies, Kyle Bosman?
Oh, sure. Easy Allies is supported through Patreon. Specifically, patreon.com/Easy Allies. This is where you would go to see how we have ourselves set up. We wouldn't exist without Patreon. We simply wouldn't be able to do these strange things. This very podcast, this Nintendo podcast, was part of a 40K goal.
Yep.
Where if we made $40,000 a month, we would be doing 2 new podcasts, this one and a movie podcast that's hosted by Ian Hink. They're rolling. They've happened. We're 40K 2 months in a row.
Yeah.
We made it through May with 40K still. Feels good. This podcast will continue, and so will Easy Allies. So check out that URL if you're curious on how you could support us in doing what we do, which is making videos and things about video games and other things that we love.
Nice. Thank you for that, Kyle. Thank you both for being on again. Always a pleasure to have you two on to discuss all things Nintendo.
Stop all things. Stop all things. Yeah. I know you'll never stop now.
Yeah.
It's all things.
No, I got to come up with new ones each time. That might be a goal. Anyway, we go tough enough. So thank you again, everyone, for watching, and see you next time on Friend Code.